So you're in the CIA. You're wanting to leave. And
you know the story of how I left, right? Or how this all happened.
with Betsy? No, do you tell the story?
Oh, well, I was on my way to business school, and I'd gotten in. I'd actually even sent in a deposit. They had my money. I was enrolling. I was still waiting to hear from one school. I was in the third round, and somebody who was a friend of mine said, I was at this conference, and I told this woman, Betsy Morgan, about you, and she thinks that you should have lunch because maybe you could do some stuff, because I know you're conservative and you work at the CIA and you know some stuff about the world or whatever. It was very like,
Right.
And I was still at the intelligence division, and I had told them that I was leaving. It was the very end, and I just said, I'll take my lunch break today in Midtown. I'll go meet with this woman, Betsy. And we sat down the office was totally empty. We sat down, and she had it was really funny. It was like this little desk that looked like you would have gotten for.
We did. We got it at IKEA.
Yeah, like a third grader or something.
Yeah.
It was a little IKEA desk.
She said when she first worked here, she said, I don't care about my desk, just anything. I don't want to spend a lot of money, just anything. So we went to IKEA and we got like a little student desk for her.
Yeah. So she was sitting at this little student desk in this empty room. We sat down, we started talking, and what was supposed to be a quick coffee lasted over an hour, and then she said, you got to come talk to you, and then I talked to you the next day.
What did you think of that? Did you know who I was, and what was your impression?
The TV show, the Fox show, was on at 5 o'clock in the NYPD Intelligence Division on our screens all the time. So I was familiar, and I'd watch the show. I'd watch the show there. But when you're a guy who's also working in the intel community, I'll be honest with you, you get home and you just want to watch, Top Chef or something.
Right. Yeah.
You don't go home and watch the news particularly, but I mean, I was familiar from there. So yeah.
And we sat down and had a talk.
We sat down, had a talk, and I told you I was all in, and it'll be 4 years ago in June.
Now you're the only guy, and as a guy who has been in radio since I was 13, you're the only guy in the history that has filled in for me, for Rush, for Sean. First time you ever did radio was with us.
Yeah, the way radio happened was I sat down with Dom Theodore, who you obviously know very, very well.
He runs our radio division.
Right, runs the radio division, and I said, I want to do a radio show. And it was kind of like the guy who shows up to to preseason baseball or something, who doesn't even really, doesn't have a uniform, just like, I've heard this baseball, this baseball thing, it looks cool on TV, And he sort of smiled and he said, well, if you're willing to put in the work, and so I would sneak in to the radio studio during breaks, whenever I could, that wasn't going to interrupt the flow of people who were doing actual radio shows, and would tape monologues, and we did that for about 6 months. And at first, Dom's like, we're working on it. I mean, it was Padawan, not ready for the lightsaber right away, but over time we got up to speed, and then he gave me the show.
No matter what he said to you, he called me day number one because he told me that you had met. He said, what do you think? And I said, give him a shot. I'm loving the fact that anybody wants a shot. I said, is he willing to work? He said, yeah, he says he is. You did your first tape. He sends me an email. This guy's going to be a superstar.
Well, I'm a big Dom fan, so that's. But it was funny for me because that was the only thing. TV we had briefing training at the CIA and obviously interact with policymakers, but it's very sort of formalized and sterile. I did a lot of writing there. Radio was the only thing that wasn't just a direct switch. It didn't immediately transfer over from where I was, and yet it was the thing that I was most certain I wanted to do. I talked to Betsy that first day. She said, well, with TV and there's radio. I was like, radio, okay. And I was always in the back of my mind because I'm a listener. I've been listening to talk radio, all the big guys for a long time, and that was just the thing that I knew I wanted to do because there's something, and we've talked about this before, but there's something about the purity of what is essentially a one-to-one conversation.
It's the only one.
It's a talk between friends. Maybe a lot of friends, but we're having it like we're just sitting across from each other. And I just think that as a medium and as a way to express yourself to people, I don't know.
It's one to many, but it feels one to one on both sides.